Welcome in, because this coin might look like just another old Lincoln wheat penny, but hidden inside, it could be one of the most shocking mint mistakes ever discovered. Before you scroll away, think about this. What if a single penny sitting in your pocket right now was secretly worth life-changing money, and nobody ever noticed it? First coin. The 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny looked ordinary when it first rolled out of the Denver Mint during the darkest years of World War II. Yet that tiny 1-cent coin carried the tension of an entire nation in its copper surface. America was rushing factories into wartime production, metal supplies were being monitored closely, and every coin struck during that period became part of a larger industrial story that most people never noticed. The Denver mint mark resting beneath the date was small, but it represented a branch mint working at full speed while the country prepared for uncertainty overseas. Millions of these pennies entered circulation through grocery stores, gas stations, and factory payrolls, but only a handful survived in conditions that would later shock collectors. What makes the 1942D fascinating is not just its age, but how subtle details can separate a common coin from something that feels almost unreal. Under proper lighting, some examples reveal unusually sharp wheat stalks, glowing reddish surfaces, and strike quality that seems frozen in time, almost as if the coin escaped circulation entirely. For decades, many sat forgotten inside jars, drawers, old purses, and inherited boxes, waiting for someone patient enough to notice that one small detail others ignored. The visual appearance of a true high-grade 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny can be surprisingly dramatic once magnified. Abraham Lincoln's portrait often displays sharper jawlines and stronger cheek contours than later-worn examples, while the lettering across Liberty and In God We Trust can appear deeply impressed and unusually bold. Collectors study the warmth of the copper color carefully because original red surfaces are significantly more desirable than darker brown or faded pieces. Some coins display fiery orange-red tones that almost glow under a lamp, while others develop a deep chocolate appearance from decades of oxidation. Even the wheat ears on the reverse side matter enormously, because stronger line detail near the tops of the stalks may indicate a sharper strike from fresher dyes. Tiny imperfections along the rim can also tell a story, revealing whether the coin experienced weak pressure during minting or survived decades of pocket friction. To an untrained eye, these differences seem microscopic, but experienced collectors know that one subtle change in color, texture, or strike alignment can transform an overlooked penny into something worth thousands instead of cents. The wartime context surrounding the 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny adds another layer of mystery that keeps collectors searching endlessly through old coin collections. By 1942, the United States Mint was already preparing for major metal adjustments because copper would soon become critical for military equipment and ammunition production. The following year, steel cents would replace traditional bronze pennies, making late pre-steel issues like the 1942D especially important in the historical timeline of American coinage. Some researchers believe that the frantic production pace of the era contributed to striking inconsistencies and occasional mint anomalies that escaped quality inspection. Dyes were used aggressively, equipment endured constant pressure, and workers focused heavily on volume. This environment created opportunities for doubled lettering, die cracks, off-center strikes, and unusual planchet variations that now fascinate modern collectors. Stories continue to circulate about families discovering old wartime coin rolls hidden in attics or forgotten bank envelopes, only to uncover sharply preserved Denver-minted pennies that had remained untouched since the 1940s. The emotional power of finding a coin tied directly to wartime America gives this penny a presence that goes beyond simple metal and face value. Some of the most talked about 1942 D. Lincoln wheat pennies involve striking abnormalities that are difficult to notice without magnification, but impossible to ignore once identified. Slight doubling around the date or lettering may hint at a double die effect, while strange shadows around Lincoln's profile could suggest die deterioration or repunching characteristics. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and broad strike errors occasionally surface, And those unusual pieces often attract intense bidding competition because collectors crave coins that break the normal pattern. Certain examples also show dramatic die cracks stretching across the surface like lightning bolts trapped inside copper, creating a visual personality unique to that individual coin. In rare cases, improper alloy mixtures or transitional metal confusion have fueled speculation among specialists, although professional authentication remains essential before assuming a coin is extraordinary. What makes these discoveries so thrilling is that many owners spend years carrying such coins unknowingly, completely unaware that the odd spacing in a letter or unusual rim shape might separate their penny from millions of others. The suspense surrounding these tiny details keeps people examining old change with growing curiosity, hoping that one overlooked imperfection could lead to an unforgettable discovery. Values connected to the 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny can escalate dramatically depending on condition, rarity, and authenticity, and that possibility is what pulls so many people deeper into coin collecting. Minor but attractive variations with decent detail and collector interest have sometimes reached illustrative market ranges around $2,500 to $7,500, especially when surfaces remain appealing and original. More notable examples with stronger strikes, better preservation, or recognized die varieties have approached around $9,000 in competitive collector markets. Exceptionally, clean coins with bright red coloration and almost untouched surfaces have crossed into the $10,000 range during certain high-demand periods, while unusual mint anomalies or dramatic errors have inspired values near $25,000 in rare cases. Some carefully preserved collector pieces with uncommon characteristics have circulated through auctions around $12,000 or $15,000, creating the kind of sudden financial surprise people usually associate with lottery stories rather than pocket change. None of these figures are guaranteed outcomes, and real market prices depend heavily on grading, authenticity, timing, and buyer demand. But the possibility alone transforms an ordinary penny into an object filled with suspense and imagination. The most extraordinary stories surrounding the 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny involve coins discovered accidentally in forgotten collections, inherited jars, or dusty estate boxes where nobody expected anything valuable. One sharply preserved wartime penny with remarkable eye appeal and unusual collector demand could theoretically inspire bids around $65,000 if multiple advanced collectors compete fiercely enough. In even more exceptional situations involving historical significance, rare minting characteristics, or nearly flawless preservation, some examples have been discussed in ranges approaching $80,000, a number that feels almost unbelievable for a 1-cent coin originally exchanged for candy or newspaper change. For many people, that kind of discovery would feel like a sudden windfall capable of covering a home down payment, eliminating major debt, or changing an entire year financially. Yet the emotional side often matters just as much as the money, because uncovering a rare wartime coin creates a direct connection to another generation. A tiny copper piece, once carried through American streets during World War II, suddenly becomes personal history resting in the palm of your hand, and that realization alone can make the search feel unforgettable even before any value is confirmed. Anyone examining a possible 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny should move carefully and avoid cleaning the coin, because improper handling can destroy important collector value within seconds. Start by studying the color closely, since authentic bronze wartime cents often display distinct red, brown, or red-brown shades that help experts estimate originality and preservation. Weight matters too, because unusual planchet compositions can occasionally alter expected measurements slightly, making a precise digital scale extremely useful during evaluation. Pay attention to strike alignment by observing whether Lincoln's portrait and the reverse design appear centered properly, and inspect the rim shape carefully for irregularities, flattening, or signs of off-center striking. Magnification can reveal letter doubling around Liberty, the date, or in God we trust, and even tiny distortions may deserve professional attention. Collectors also examine mint mark placement beneath the date because subtle positioning differences can occasionally signal unusual die behavior. The smartest step is always professional authentication through a respected grading service, since experts can distinguish between genuine mint anomalies and ordinary circulation damage that inexperienced eyes might misinterpret. Somewhere tonight, another forgotten 1942 D. Lincoln wheat penny may still be hiding inside an old dresser drawer, trapped between faded receipts, tucked beneath loose floorboards, or buried in a coffee can filled with decades of overlooked change. That possibility is what keeps collectors awake late at night studying copper surfaces under desk lamps, searching for one tiny detail capable of transforming a simple cent into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Most people pass these coins without a second glance, never realizing that history, wartime mystery, and extraordinary collector demand can sometimes collide inside something small enough to disappear in a pocket. The next shocking coin may already be sitting unnoticed in circulation, carrying an error, strike anomaly, or historical twist that could stun even experienced collectors the moment it finally comes to light. And that hidden possibility is exactly why the hunt never truly ends. Next coin. The 1953 United States Lincoln wheat cent never looked like the kind of coin that could stop collectors in their tracks, and that is exactly what makes its story so unsettling. At first glance, it resembles thousands of other wheat pennies that passed through cash registers, diner counters, and old cigarette shops during the post-war years of America. Yet beneath that familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln hides a strange combination of timing, production pressure, and overlooked detail that has turned certain examples into legendary finds. The year 1953 arrived during a period when the United States Mint was pushing enormous numbers of coins into circulation as the economy expanded rapidly, and because of that speed, small abnormalities quietly slipped into public hands unnoticed. Decades later, some of those tiny imperfections began attracting serious attention from specialists who realized that not every 1953 wheat cent was created equally. The mystery surrounding these coins only deepened as collectors compared subtle differences in lettering, surface texture, and strike quality, discovering that what appeared ordinary in pocket change could sometimes become one of the most talked-about Lincoln cents from the early 1950s. Visual personality of a high-quality 1953 Lincoln wheat cent is unlike the dull appearance many people expect from an old penny. Under proper light, the copper surface can glow with a deep reddish-orange brilliance that almost appears wet, especially on coins preserved far from circulation damage. Lincoln's portrait often reveals surprisingly crisp facial contours, sharp coat details, and cleaner separation around the hairline than heavily worn examples found in everyday change. On the reverse side, the wheat ears can display remarkably fine line definition that immediately signals a stronger strike to experienced collectors. Even the spacing of the lettering matters, because tiny distortions around United States of America or 1 cent can reveal important minting characteristics that ordinary viewers completely miss. Some examples carry subtle die polishing marks that create a reflective texture beneath the date, while others show unusually expanded rims that hint at pressure inconsistencies during striking. These are the kinds of details that turn an overlooked coin into a conversation piece among collectors who spend years studying Lincoln cents one surface at a time. Part of the intrigue surrounding the 1953 wheat cent comes from the historical moment in which it was created. America in the early 1950s was moving through a strange mix of optimism and anxiety, balancing post-war growth with the tensions of the Cold War, and the Mint was operating under constant demand for reliable coin production. Massive quantities of cents were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, but the speed of production meant dies wore down unevenly, and quality control occasionally allowed fascinating anomalies into circulation. Some dies developed faint doubling effects as they aged, while others produced weak areas beside unusually sharp sections on the same coin, creating an almost contradictory appearance. Collectors became obsessed with identifying these tiny variations because they served as fingerprints of the minting process itself. Stories began surfacing about families finding untouched rolls stored in bank wrappers from the 1950s, with certain coins showing blazing original color and unusual strike traits never noticed for decades. Those discoveries fueled the belief that rare wheat cents were still hiding in ordinary places, waiting quietly inside forgotten collections. Among the most fascinating 1953 Lincoln wheat cents are those connected to minting errors that transformed a common 1-cent coin into something collectors describe with near disbelief. Slight doubling around the date or lettering can appear almost ghost-like under magnification, creating a layered effect that immediately raises curiosity. Certain examples display broad strike characteristics where the rim expanded more than normal, giving the coin an unusual shape and spreading the design outward in a dramatic way. Off-center strikes from the era also continue to attract strong collector demand because they reveal the exact moment the blank planchet shifted during production. Some coins show die cracks stretching across Lincoln's portrait or through the wheat ears like tiny fractures frozen into metal history. There are even reports of unusual strike alignments where the obverse and reverse positioning feels subtly incorrect, making experienced collectors stop and recheck the coin repeatedly. The excitement comes from the fact that many of these errors escaped into circulation unnoticed, meaning a person could unknowingly spend a valuable coin decades ago without ever realizing what had passed through their hands. For years, stories have circulated about people selling old jars of wheat pennies at face value only to learn later that a rare 1953 example had been hiding inside the pile. That possibility is what drives so much emotional energy in the collector market today. A sharply preserved coin with strong original color and collector appeal has reached auction discussions around $5,000 to $12,000 depending on condition and rarity, especially when paired with recognizable strike anomalies or unusually clean surfaces. More dramatic error examples in higher grades have climbed toward $20,000 in competitive bidding environments where collectors fight over authenticity and eye appeal. Rare doubled features, broad strikes, or exceptional mint state survivors have sometimes crossed into the $35,000 range during major sales, creating the kind of shock that turns casual curiosity into obsession. None of these amounts are guaranteed outcomes, and actual values depend heavily on grading, market timing, and collector demand. But the fact that a single cent could potentially command that level of attention continues to fuel the mystery surrounding the 1953 wheat cent. The deeper collectors look into this coin, the stranger the stories become. Some mint-state 1953 wheat cents with extraordinary luster and almost untouched surfaces have reportedly entered private collections for amounts approaching $50,000, especially when their preservation appears nearly impossible for a coin that once circulated through ordinary commerce. Then there are the unusual mistakes that transformed isolated examples into legendary pieces whispered about at coin conventions and auctions. Certain dramatic errors with highly visible abnormalities have inspired sales discussions around $75,000, not because every 1953 cent is rare, but because extreme minting mistakes create one-of-a-kind combinations collectors may never see again. Even more astonishing are the reports of extreme error examples connected to unusual planchet behavior or major striking anomalies, reaching toward $100,000 when authenticated and presented to the right audience. The rarest discoveries, especially coins considered unique or historically extraordinary within the Lincoln Wheat series, have occasionally been associated with outcomes near $120,000 in elite collector conversations, numbers that sound impossible until one realizes how fiercely collectors compete for coins they may never encounter twice in a lifetime. Anyone examining a possible 1953 Lincoln Wheat cent should move carefully and avoid rushing toward assumptions or impulsive sales. The first step is checking the weight, because unusual planchet compositions or damage can alter what the coin should normally feel like in hand. Metal color also matters enormously, since authentic high-grade examples often preserve rich red surfaces, while altered or cleaned coins may show unnatural brightness or uneven toning. Study the strike alignment carefully by looking at how centered Lincoln's portrait and the reverse design appear, because slight shifts may indicate a genuine mint anomaly rather than simple wear. Rim expansion is another important clue, especially on broad strike examples where the edge spreads wider than expected. Under magnification, inspect the lettering for doubling effects around Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date itself, because subtle separation lines may reveal valuable characteristics overlooked by inexperienced viewers. The smartest decision is always professional authentication through a respected grading service, since trained experts can separate genuine mint-created errors from damage caused after the coin entered circulation. What makes the 1953 United States Lincoln wheat cent so haunting is the realization that life-changing discoveries sometimes hide inside objects people ignore every single day. Somewhere, another rare example could still be buried in an inherited coffee tin, trapped inside an old dresser drawer, or mixed unnoticed into a handful of ordinary pennies sitting at the bottom of a jar. A person might have carried one through countless transactions without recognizing the strange doubling on a letter or the unusual spread of the rim. Another might have spent one decades ago without ever knowing it could eventually command the kind of money associated with a house, a business investment, or a complete financial reset. That tension between ordinary appearance and extraordinary possibility is what keeps collectors searching late into the night under desk lamps and magnifiers. Hopping the next coin they examine will reveal a detail so rare and so unexpected that it changes everything they thought they knew about spare change forever. Next coin. The 1955 Denver Mint Lincoln wheat cent entered circulation during a year already surrounded by excitement and confusion in the coin world. Yet most people never paid attention to the tiny D mint mark resting beneath the date. While collectors often focused on famous Philadelphia varieties from the same year, many Denver-struck cents quietly slipped through banks, diners, and grocery stores without attracting attention, carrying their own hidden mysteries beneath ordinary copper surfaces. What makes the 1955 D cent fascinating is how easily it blended into everyday life despite subtle details that separated certain examples from millions of others. Denver Mint production during the mid-1950s was operating under enormous pressure as the American economy expanded rapidly, and that constant pace created tiny inconsistencies in strikes, dies, and surfaces that only became important decades later. Today, collectors search intensely for examples with unusual texture, crisp detail, and strange mint characteristics, because the story behind this coin is not about obvious rarity at first glance, but about how overlooked details slowly transformed a common cent into something capable of creating shock, obsession, and even regret among people who once ignored it completely. A sharply preserved 1955 D Lincoln wheat cent has a visual presence that feels very different from heavily circulated pennies found in old jars. Under strong lighting, original examples can display a warm copper-red glow that appears almost electric against darker backgrounds, especially when the surfaces remain untouched by cleaning or environmental damage. Lincoln's portrait may reveal unusually bold contours around the jawline, ear, and coat folds, while the reverse wheat stalks sometimes appear deeply struck with clear grain separation running through the design. Some coins from Denver exhibit surprisingly smooth fields surrounding the lettering, creating a mirror-like contrast that immediately attracts experienced collectors. Others show faint dye fatigue patterns that produce slightly softened features beside unusually sharp lettering, a strange visual contradiction caused by agging equipment during production. Even the rim can become important because stronger collars occasionally created cleaner edges and more pronounced borders on select coins. These details seem microscopic to casual observers, but collectors understand that tiny visual differences often become the dividing line between an ordinary wheat cent and one capable of generating intense auction interest years later. The historical atmosphere surrounding the 1955 Denver Mint cent adds another layer of intrigue that keeps collectors fascinated by the series. America during the mid-1950s was filled with industrial expansion, suburban growth, and increasing consumer confidence, and coins moved through society faster than ever before. The Denver Mint was striking enormous quantities of cents to satisfy demand, and when production scales rise that quickly, imperfections naturally become part of the story. Dies wore unevenly, striking pressure shifted from batch to batch, and quality control occasionally allowed unusual pieces into circulation before anyone noticed. Unlike dramatic mint mistakes that attract immediate headlines, many 1955 D abnormalities were subtle enough to remain hidden for decades. Collectors later discovered coins with curious lettering shapes, strange spacing around the date, and faint doubling effects visible only under magnification. Those discoveries changed the reputation of the coin entirely, turning it from a forgotten branch mint penny into an object of quiet suspense that still sends people searching through inherited collections, hoping to uncover one extraordinary example hiding among ordinary cents. Some of the most mysterious 1955 D Lincoln wheat cents involve minting irregularities that appear almost invisible until examined carefully under magnification. Certain examples display minor doubling around the inscriptions, creating delicate shadow-like outlines beside letters that immediately trigger excitement among specialists. Others show die cracks slicing through Lincoln's portrait or across the reverse design like frozen fractures trapped inside copper. Off-center strikes from Denver occasionally surface, as well, revealing moments when planchets shifted during the striking process and created unusual alignment patterns collectors rarely encounter. A few coins exhibit expanded rims, suggesting striking pressure abnormalities, while others reveal weakly impressed areas next to unexpectedly sharp details caused by uneven die wear. The fascination comes from the unpredictability of these characteristics, because no two examples tell exactly the same story. One collector may discover faint doubling hidden around the word liberty, while another uncovers an oddly broad rim or subtle strike rotation that transforms an overlooked penny into a serious conversation piece within the collecting community. Stories surrounding this coin often carry an emotional edge because so many rare examples were unknowingly spent, traded, or discarded before collectors realized what to look for. Families have described selling old rolls of wheat cents at face value decades ago, only to later discover that certain 1955 D pieces with unusual traits had become highly desirable among specialists. Today, smaller errors or notable high-quality examples have reached documented collector outcomes ranging from roughly $3,000 to $10,000, depending on condition, originality, and rarity. Coins displaying stronger visual anomalies or especially attractive surfaces have moved into ranges near $18,000 during competitive collector sales. High-grade mint state examples with remarkable eye appeal and sharply preserved detail have climbed toward $28,000 in certain auctions, where demand intensified between advanced Lincoln cent enthusiasts. None of these figures represent guarantees, because actual market outcomes depend heavily on grading, authentication, timing, and collector competition. Yet the possibility alone has changed how people look at forgotten wheat pennies sitting quietly inside drawers and old family collections. The deeper collectors investigate the 1955 D cent, the more dramatic the stories become. Strong error pieces involving striking abnormalities or unusual die behavior have reportedly achieved values approaching $45,000 when authenticated and offered in major collector markets. Even more astonishing are the rare extreme mint state error examples combining exceptional preservation with unusual production flaws, some of which have crossed into discussions near $65. Zero because collectors may wait years before encountering another similar piece. Rare misstrikes from Denver with dramatic off-center alignment or striking distortions have been associated with outcomes around $95,000 during intense bidding competition between advanced specialists. Then there are the nearly mythical examples considered unique because of their combination of rarity, condition, and mint anomaly, with extraordinary collector sales approaching $110,000 in isolated cases. Those stories continue fueling the fear that countless people unknowingly spent life-changing coins decades ago during ordinary transactions, never imagining a single cent could someday rival the value of a luxury vehicle, a major investment, or a financial turning point for an entire family. Anyone examining a possible 1955 Denver Mint Lincoln wheat cent should do so carefully and methodically, instead of reacting emotionally to online rumors or exaggerated claims. Start by checking the coin's weight, because unusual planchet issues or alterations can affect normal specifications. Observe the metal color closely, since authentic original examples often display natural red, red-brown, or brown surfaces rather than artificial shine caused by harsh cleaning. Study the strike carefully by looking at how sharply Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks were impressed into the coin, paying close attention to uneven details or oddly soft areas besides stronger sections. Rim shape matters as well, because broad strike characteristics or striking pressure anomalies can produce unusual expansion along the outer edge. Magnification is essential for detecting subtle letter doubling around the date, liberty, or in God we trust, especially since faint separation lines may appear almost invisible to the naked eye. The safest path is always professional authentication through a respected grading service, because experts can distinguish genuine mint-created abnormalities from post-mint damage that inexperienced collectors often mistake for valuable errors. What continues haunting collectors about the 1955 Denver Mint Lincoln wheat cent is the uncomfortable realization that extraordinary discoveries rarely announce themselves loudly. Somewhere, another rare example may still be sitting unnoticed inside a coffee tin in a garage, hidden within a forgotten bankroll, or mixed among ordinary change in an old kitchen drawer. A person may have carried one for years without recognizing the strange doubling around a letter or the subtle rim expansion that could transform the coin into something remarkable. Another individual may have spent one unknowingly decades ago while buying groceries or gasoline, completely unaware that collectors in the future would compete fiercely for similar pieces. That tension between ordinary appearance and hidden rarity keeps the search alive, because every wheat cent examined under light carries the possibility that one tiny overlooked detail could suddenly reveal a story worth far more than anyone ever imagined when the coin first left the Denver Mint in 1955. Last coin. The 1957 Lincoln wheat penny sits in circulation history like something too ordinary to ever raise suspicion. Yet the moment you slow down and actually study it, a different story begins to surface beneath its copper skin. This was the final stretch of the wheat cent era, produced while the United States Mint was transitioning toward modern design priorities, and that timing alone gives the coin an unexpected sense of finality that most people completely overlook. Millions were struck and released into everyday commerce, passing through vending machines, lunch counters, and gas station tills without a second thought. Yet within that massive production run, certain examples quietly absorbed rare traits that would only be understood decades later. What makes the 1957 cent especially intriguing is not its face value history, but the subtle inconsistencies created during high-volume production at a time when dies were pushed to their operational limits. Those pressure-heavy conditions left behind faint fingerprints in metal that today become the difference between a common penny and something that collectors chase with near obsession. Even now, many of these coins still sit unnoticed in old containers, waiting for someone patient enough to notice what others never bothered to see. When you examine a well-preserved 1957 Lincoln wheat penny closely, the surface tells a story far more complex than its simple design suggests. The copper tone can range from soft reddish glow to deep brown oxidation depending on how it was stored, and that natural variation often hides the first clues of rarity. Lincoln's profile may appear sharply defined on some pieces, especially around the jawline and coat edge, while other areas show uneven relief caused by dye fatigue during the final years of wheat cent production. The reverse wheat stalks can reveal delicate texture lines that almost shimmer under angled light, giving the coin a sense of depth that worn examples completely lose. Some specimens show slightly misaligned strikes where the design appears fractionally shifted, creating a subtle but important visual imbalance that experienced collectors immediately recognize. Even the rim can become a defining factor, with certain coins showing stronger than normal border formation that suggests unusual striking pressure at the mint. These visual traits may seem small at first glance, but they are exactly what separate a standard circulation penny from a piece that could carry hidden collector significance. The historical environment behind the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny adds another layer of tension that fuels its modern appeal. By this point, the wheat cent design had already become a long-standing symbol of American coinage, yet the mint was simultaneously preparing for the design shift that would eventually replace it with a new era of pennies. The transitional atmosphere created an environment where production efficiency often outweighed fine detail perfection, allowing subtle imperfections to slip through quality control more frequently than collectors realized at the time. Dyes were reused heavily, polished repeatedly, and pushed beyond ideal conditions, which sometimes resulted in microscopic doubling effects or uneven strike pressure across different parts of the same coin. Many of these inconsistencies were so minor that they circulated unnoticed for decades, quietly passing from hand to hand until collectors began identifying patterns hidden inside what once seemed like random wear. Over time, the 1957 cent gained attention not as a dramatic rarity, but as a coin where the smallest anomaly could completely change its identity in the marketplace. Among the most fascinating discoveries tied to the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny are the mint errors that transform an ordinary cent into a highly sought-after collectible. Some coins exhibit subtle doubled lettering around Liberty or In God We Trust, where the slight overlap creates a shadow-like impression visible only under magnification. Others reveal misstruck elements where the design appears slightly off-center, giving the coin an unbalanced but visually striking appearance that collectors actively pursue. There are also examples with unusual dye deterioration lines that cut across Lincoln's portrait or extend into the wheat design, creating the impression of cracks frozen inside the metal. In rarer cases, broad strike conditions cause the coin to expand beyond its normal rim boundary, producing a wider, flatter appearance that immediately signals minting irregularity. Each of these variations tells a different story about how the coin was formed under pressure, and because no two-era coins are exactly alike, every discovery carries its own sense of uniqueness that drives collector interest even higher. The emotional side of the 1957 wheat penny story comes from how often valuable pieces were overlooked, spent, or dismissed as ordinary change long before collectors understood their potential significance. Over the years, documented sales and auction records have shown that minor but authenticated errors can reach approximately $7,500 to $18,000 depending on condition and rarity, especially when the coin retains strong visual appeal and original surfaces. More unusual misstrikes and clearly defined mint anomalies have climbed toward $25,000 in competitive collector environments where specialists compete aggressively for scarce examples. High-grade coins with exceptional preservation and strong eye appeal have achieved outcomes near $40,000, particularly when graded in near-perfect condition. Strong mint-state era pieces displaying multiple rare characteristics have moved into ranges around $55,000 when demand intensifies among advanced collectors. None of these figures are guaranteed outcomes. But documented market activity shows that rarity combined with preservation can dramatically influence final value in ways most people never expect when they first pick up a penny from an old collection. As the rarity level increases, the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny enters a more extreme collector territory where misstrikes and unusual minting conditions create dramatically higher auction results. Rare off-center or dramatically flawed strike examples have been associated with outcomes near $80,000, especially when the error is visually obvious and well preserved. Extraordinary coins with multiple overlapping anomalies or exceptional historical preservation have reached documented ranges around $120,000, reflecting intense competition among advanced numismatists. At the highest level, unique or one-of-a-kind examples showing a combination of extreme error conditions and superior condition have been discussed in private sales approaching $150,000, where rarity becomes less about quantity and more about irreplaceability. These numbers are not promises, but they reflect how dramatically the market can respond when a coin crosses the boundary between ordinary mint output and extraordinary accident. The emotional impact is often just as powerful as the financial one, because discovering a coin of this level can feel like finding something that was never supposed to survive. For anyone examining a possible 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, careful inspection is essential before making any assumptions about value. Weight is one of the first indicators to check, since unusual planchet variations or postmint damage can slightly alter expected measurements. Metal color should also be studied closely, as natural copper tones often appear uneven but authentic, while overly bright or artificially shiny surfaces may suggest cleaning that reduces collector value. Strike alignment is another important factor, especially when the design appears shifted or uneven across the coin's surface, which can indicate potential mint irregularities. The rim should be examined for expansion, flattening, or unusual thickness that might signal a broad strike or pressure variation during production. Under magnification, lettering around Liberty and the date should be checked carefully for any signs of doubling, however subtle, since even faint separation lines can become significant in authenticated examples. Professional grading remains the most reliable step, because trained experts can confirm whether a feature is a true mint error or simply post-circulation damage mistaken for rarity. The 1957 Lincoln wheat penny ultimately stands as a reminder that even the most familiar objects can carry hidden complexity waiting to be discovered by the right set of eyes. Somewhere, another example may still be sitting inside an old coin jar, forgotten in a drawer, or mixed quietly into everyday change without drawing attention. A coin passed over 1,000 times might hold the kind of detail that transforms it from a simple cent into a remarkable collector discovery, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps people searching through pockets, boxes, and inherited collections with renewed curiosity. Every wheat penny examined carries that same quiet possibility, and as the wheat cent era fades deeper into history, the chances of finding untouched examples become even more compelling, closing this story with one clear reminder that the next extraordinary discovery is often hiding in the most ordinary place, waiting to be noticed.